Continuing on trig, we're going to learn how to solve for a side. Okay, so this is your worksheet from today, wherever I put it. Oh, I gave them all out. Okay, so basically we're solving for an unknown. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll give you an angle and they'll give you a side. Okay, so quick review so that we can have it written down again and get used to it. Sine goes with opposite over hypotenuse. So it's sine of the, whatever the angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Then we have cosine. Whatever the angle is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And then we have tangent of whatever the angle is equal to opposite over adjacent. Is that what?
Under sine, is that an I? Is that an LP or is that supposed to be an H?
This is tangent.
No. Okay.
Right here? Yeah, it's hypotenuse. So hypotenuse. Okay, any questions on that stuff before we move on? Y'all seem to have gotten that pretty decent, so I'm not worried about that part of things. Now, this is just going to be some calculator stuff, and if you don't have a calculator, go get one. Okay, so we're going to use these buttons on your calculator. They are sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, we're going to use those three calculators. We're going to use the inverse of those, so it'll be second sine, and you'll get this sine to the -1. You won't hit sine and then the -1 button. You will hit second sine, and mine's in yellow. Yours might be in a different color, but right above it, it says sine to the -1. That's inverse sine when we get to that. Okay. Okay, so if I do the example, and you need to draw this example, they're always right triangles. So draw a right triangle. Here's my right side. For our first example, I'm going to set one side as 30, okay, and then I'll give the length of one side. So for example, I'll put, let's just say, okay, sure, why not, 4. So we need to find the other side, so I'll label them A and C. So I just labeled them randomly. It's not always going to be A and C, I just labeled them, okay? You can use X and Y if you want, I don't care. So here, I want to find this leg. I want to find A. So I look at the angle that they gave me, which is 30. So I'm going to use 30. And I'm going to take what I know, which was 4, which is opposite of 30, right? And I want to find A, which is adjacent to 30. So if this is opposite of 30, so I'm going to write it in, opposite, and this is adjacent, then what is C? Hypotenuse, thank you. So, if I want to find A, which of the functions use opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So I'm going to have to find tangent of 30, and it's going to equal opposite, which is 4, over adjacent, which in this case was A. Okay, so that's how I would set it up initially. So since I have opposite over adjacent now, I need to solve for the problem. So tangent of 30, I can... Say that again?
4 divided by 30?
No, not right now. So, in order to get rid of this A off the bottom, I could multiply each side by A and then divide and do this complicated thing. If you wanted to do that, okay, go ahead and do it. You are more familiar, though, with cross multiplying. So what I do is I just stick it over 1, and I do my cross multiplication. 1 times 4 is 4. A times tangent of 30 is just A multiplied by tangent of 30, because we don't know that right now. Okay, and it equals 4. Now, how am I going to get A by itself? Because it's being multiplied, I'm going to have to divide. I'm dividing by tangent of 30. Now, the reason that I don't just convert tangent of 30 to a number is because most of the time, there are a really long slew of numbers, and you don't want to approximate on anything. So after I get the tangents to cancel out on this side, I have A is going to be equal to 4 divided by tangent of 30. And I can just type that into my calculator. So pull out your calculators. Type in 4. I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit, maybe. So 4 divided by, and then I'm going to put this in parentheses just in case. Tangent of 30, and I close parentheses twice because I had another one right here. Okay, so that's what it should basically look like. Then press enter, it'll spit out whatever your number is. Oh, I have a problem. We can have a side length of a negative, correct? So before we start doing these, we need to make sure we're in the correct mode. This is a good test because this tells me that obviously that's not the correct answer, right? So go to mode. You're going to go down here where it says radian or degrees. And we're going to put it in degree.
Oh.
Press mode. Go down to where it says radian and degree. Put it on degree. Okay, then just get out of it, clear, second get out, and you can re-put it back in there. We should get a better answer this time. There we go. 6.928. That makes much more sense than the negative that I had before. Okay? Anybody not get that? I need to fix you? No, sometimes you'll be fine, but other times you won't be. So I want you to be in the habit of doing that, because if you don't, sometimes you'll get it wrong. And I don't want that to happen. So if we get in the habit of doing it right, this way every time, then you won't have that problem later. Okay, so my answer, if it does not tell us specifically what's around 2, I want you to go to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 places, okay? Now I know that seems crazy, but as a general rule, we go to 4 decimal places because when we find sine or cosine of something, you always get this long slew of numbers, and it makes a big difference when you multiply them out, especially when you're dealing with big numbers. Okay, so the answer for A is 6.9282.
Oh, so it's all of it, not just
9282, and I would round from the 0, but you know, it just stays the same there, so I didn't have to round up. So that's my answer for A. Now I have to find C. So again, I'm looking back at my original. I see that I have what I know is opposite, and what I want to find is the hypotenuse. So what is opposite than hypotenuse? It's, which one is opposite over hypotenuse? Sine. It is indeed sine. I'm looking at sine. It says opposite over hypotenuse. If you're ever in doubt, go ahead and write so, ka, and then toa. And all I have to do is go opposite and hypotenuse, OH. Obviously, that one's opposite of hypotenuse. It has to be sine. Okay? So, let's start doing that one. Sine of 30, so sine of 30 is going to be equal to opposite, which is 4, over hypotenuse, which is C. Now, I do basically the same thing that I did on this one right here. So, I'm going to put it over 1, cross multiply, 4 on that side, and then cross multiply, C multiplied by sine of 30. How am I going to get rid of sine of 30? I would go ahead and divide it, so sine of 30 divided on both sides. Then I can use my calculator. If you want to clear out every time you can. But so we have 4 divided by sine of 30. 4 divided by sine of 30 gives us 8. That's a much nicer number than the last one was. So this equals 8. And that would be the final answer for C. And this one was obviously for A. Okay, any questions thus far? Okay. So that's the harder of the two. Let's see if we can do some on a different problem. So here, go draw another right triangle. Right angle right there. I'm going to give us another angle of 22 degrees this time. I'm going to put X here. I'm going to put Y here. And I'm going to label our hypotenuse this time. Somebody give me a number. 24, I heard. I'm not going to use 4 again. Okay, so now looking from our angle, I'm looking the direction from our angle. What is X? In our relationship to 22, what is X? It's opposite, right? So opposite is X. What is my hypotenuse? 24. And therefore, what is my adjacent? My adjacent is Y. Oops. Okay, so now we know all of the labels. I can start setting this up. I want to find my X first. It doesn't matter which one I find first, but for right now we're going to find X first. So which one deals with opposite and what we know, which is our hypotenuse. So which one is opposite and hypotenuse? Sine is opposite and hypotenuse. So sine of our degree, which is 22, is equal to opposite, which is x, over hypotenuse 24. Now this one's a lot easier. So if I put this over 1 again and I do my cross multiplication, I get x is equal to 24 multiplied by sine of 22. And that's really easy because x is already by itself, right? Type it in. So I have 24 multiplied by sine of 22. Spits out a number 8.9905. So I'm going to round that to 8.9906. Okay? So 8.9906. Any questions? Cross multiplication. Why did I multiply 24 times sine? Look at the example right here. We multiplied a times tangent, right? All I did was my cross multiplication. So 1 times x was x. 24 times sine of 22. It gives me the other side. I don't feel like I'm answering Nell's question. Good? Okay. Next one. I want to find my adjacent, and I know my hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse, which one is that?
Adjacent, that's
Cosine. So cosine of our angle, which is 22 in this case, is adjacent, which in this case was y, over our hypotenuse, which is 24. Again, I'm putting this over 1 so I can do my cross multiplication. This is just like solving a proportion, guys. Sine, cosine, and tangent are proportions for right triangles. That's why we set up those ratios yesterday, or day before yesterday. So 1 times y. Obviously y. Good. And then 24 times cosine of 22, and I typed that in my calculator. So again, 24 times cosine of 22. So when I round this, I'm going to go to 22.2524. Any questions on that one? Okay, so these are my two answers. Now, if there's labels that go along with these, we obviously need to include our labels, okay? Otherwise, it's just units. I can end my notes here if y'all want, but it's completely